The DOJ's antitrust trial against Google resuming this morning as the Federal Trade Commission's case against Meta heads into its third week. And the Wall Street Journal editorial board weighing in on the case is writing, quote, competition solves market problems better than regulators who keep measuring monopoly by markets that evolve faster than a bureaucracy can keep up.
Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew Ferguson joins us now. Chairman, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So as I'm sure you saw, the Wall Street Journal editorial board is critical of what you're trying to do in these two cases against Google and Meta, saying they stymie innovation. So explain what you are trying to do here and your response to the editorial board.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. So I think President Trump called it the China-loving Wall Street Journal yesterday, and I think that's exactly right. I do agree with what they said in that competition is better for America than regulation, but antitrust enforcement is how we protect competition. You know, competition is what makes America great, and antitrust is the safeguard that makes sure that American companies and American markets remain competitive. And that's what the Meta case is about making sure that giant companies with tremendous power compete on the merits rather than buying up competitors. We want competition. We want growth. Competition is how we achieve innovation, and that's what the case is about making sure that everyone's competing on the merits, which protects all Americans and helps us all flourish.
So how do you navigate that balance, wanting conservative free market principles to take hold versus the need to regulate as in your role as a regulator?
Yeah, it's a great question. So free markets are the best thing that we have, to allocate resources. Free markets are also what allow, ordinary Americans to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and achieve. That's part of the American dream. And I don't think regulation is good, and antitrust enforcement isn't regulation. The last 4 years, the previous administration, they were all about rules, rules, rules. Ex-ante regulation was the name of the game. That's not what we're about in the Trump administration. President Trump promised to deregulate, and he's delivering. At the FTC, we're leading one of the major deregulatory campaigns by eliminating anti-competitive regulations. But antitrust enforcement isn't regulation. It's just law enforcement. Congress has written the antitrust laws and has assigned the FTC and the DOJ to be a cop on the beat and make sure that everyone is playing by the competition rules. And if someone isn't, the FTC is going to go to court. But other than that, the FTC needs to stay out of the way and let our markets grow. And that's why we're leading President Trump's deregulatory campaign by eliminating anti-competitive regulations that insulate monopolies through the use of government power.
Okay, so the FTC has also announced a lawsuit against Uber over the Uber One subscription. And an Uber spokesperson has responded to this lawsuit saying, we are disappointed that the FTC chose to move forward with this action, but are confident that the courts will agree with what we already know. Uber One's sign-up and cancellation processes are clear, simple, and follow the letter and spirit of the law. So for those who aren't following this one, can you explain this case here?
Sure. Congress passed a law called the Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act. And it's all about making sure that companies with online subscriptions treat consumers fairly, both when they sign up by making it very clear and conspicuous what terms consumers are agreeing to when they sign up, and by requiring a simple method of online cancellation for online subscriptions. It's one of the most important laws Congress has passed in the last decade and a half to protect the way that Americans shop online. And it's all about fairness. And, the FTC investigated Uber for a long time and concluded that the sign-up method and the cancellation method wasn't consistent with the laws that Congress passed. And that's why we've taken Uber to court. But this isn't about, sort of a campaign against big tech. All Americans spend a lot of time online as shoppers participating in online commerce, and the FTC's job is to protect consumers and to meet consumers where they are. And because consumers spend a lot of time online with subscriptions, it's important that the FTC enforce Congress's law that's designed to protect shoppers online, and that's what the suit against Uber is all about. It's just making sure that online subscription firms like Uber are treating American consumers fairly.
Well, we're approaching the first 100 days, and I'm sure that this period of time has been a whirlwind for you, but you're getting a lot of things done, and we thank you so much for joining us this morning, Chairman Andrew Ferguson. We appreciate it very much.
The Supreme Court on Monday allowed President Donald Trump to fire a member of the Federal Trade Commission without cause, as the High Court inches toward revisiting a landmark ruling about executive power over terminations. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in a brief order that Biden-appointed FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter should remain fired from her job, at least for the next week, while the Supreme Court continues to consider her case. The High Court's order responding to an emergency petition from the Trump administration comes as Slaughter has faced whiplash in the courts while challenging Trump's decision to fire her at will. A district court reinstated Slaughter, and then through the appeals process, Slaughter was refired, rehired, and then refired once again on Monday. After an appellate court allowed her to return to work on September 2nd, she did so right away, even sharing on social media multiple dissents she has authored in the days since her return. In a statement provided to Fox News, Slaughter said she respected the Supreme Court's short-term decision and vowed to continue fighting her removal. "I intend to see this case through to the end," Slaughter said. "In the week I was back at the FTC, it became even more clear to me that we desperately need the transparency and accountability Congress intended to have at bipartisan independent agencies." Trump's decision to fire Slaughter and the other Democrat-appointed commissioner, Alvaro Bedoya, stood in tension with the FTC Act, which says commissioners should only be fired from their 7-year tenures for cause, such as malfeasance. Their firings are at odds with a 90-year-old Supreme Court ruling in Humphrey's Executor versus United States, which found that President Franklin D. Roosevelt's firing of an FTC commissioner was illegal. While the Supreme Court has let Trump's firings at other independent agencies proceed temporarily while the lawsuits play out in the lower courts, Slaughter's case has presented the most blatant question yet to the justices about whether they plan to overturn Humphrey's Executor. Legal scholars have speculated that the current conservative-leaning Supreme Court has an appetite to reverse or narrow that decision. Solicitor General John Sauer argued to the High Court that the FTC wielded significant executive power and that its authority had expanded since the 1930s, when Humphrey's Executor first established that an at-will FTC firing was illegal. The FTC now enforces dozens of statutes, including the Sherman Act, and has power to bring lawsuits seeking injunctions and penalties, Sauer noted. Contrary to the lower court's suggestion, Humphrey's Executor does not mean that Article 2 permits tenure protections for any agency named the Federal Trade Commission, no matter how much more executive power the FTC accumulates, Sauer said.